You're listening to the Grow Landscapers podcast, the podcast where we delve deeper into landscape business, interviewing legends of the UK landscaping industry. So, join host Nick Ruddle as he explores their thoughts, insights and experiences. That's here on the Grow Landscapers podcast.
Hi and welcome to the Grow Landscapers podcast. I'm Nick Ruddle and today we're here with Paul Lynch from Elmtree Garden Contractors. How you doing, Paul?
Fine, thanks, Nick. I'm all good.
Marvellous, marvellous. I'm very privileged to be a judge for the Pro Landscaper Awards, and as you are the supreme winners and winners of the Employer of the Year award, I thought it made perfect sense to invite you onto the show because obviously what you're doing is working well. So who better? The most recent winner of the Supreme Awards, the Pro Landscaper Awards. You know, I just wanted to pick your brains and hopefully people can learn from all your experiences. Obviously won a whole bunch of Barley Awards as well to chuck in the mix. So I know you're very successful. You've been established for a very long time and run a great business. So anyway, good to have you on the show.
Thanks for asking me on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. So how long have you been in the business? When did you start? When did the business start? If you just give a bit of a background to the business itself and then we'll take it from there.
So for Elmtree, it was started in 1969 by my dad, and he was a fireman at the time in Avon Fire Brigade, and he started Elmtree just as a part-time thing, and then it sort of grew from there. So I think after he'd been doing it for maybe 12 years or so, he packed in the fire brigade, and he took Elmtree up full-time, and he was doing quite a bit of work for one or two large clients in the area, building houses, what was the forerunner to Taylor Wimpey. And I picked up a nice one or two local contracts, and it grew from there, really. So I started doing work in my school holidays from the age of 10.
10,
yeah.
Labour. Dad's a slave
things
driver.
were a little bit different back then. It was easier for young people to work on sites and get some experience. And I remember the first pair of work boots I got, my gran took me to the local Marks and Spencer and bought my work boots for me at the age of 10.
Brilliant.
So, and I enjoyed working outside with the lads, and I looked up to some of the foremen we had in those days, and I enjoyed doing a good job on site and preparing the ground and laying some turf. And I remember my first lawn that I turfed back then, and I was really proud of it, you know. So that's how things started, really. And as I sort of got slightly older, I think my dad hoped I was going to join the company. And when I was 17, 18, I still wasn't quite sure. And because I'd been working outside in my school holidays, I was doing a maintenance round actually for a brewery, and it was a brewery that had about 300, 400 pubs in the UK. And I was doing a round with another guy, Richard, who still works for Elmtree now. And we had about 30 pubs, so we looked after, and we won an award that year because they audited and scored every pub and every round. So we went up to the brewery and presented with the award for the top average scores on the maintenance round, and I suppose it was my first taste of winning an award, you know.
Very good. We haven't stopped since, have you?
No, true.
Very good. So what happened then? So after that point, so you didn't necessarily join the business straight away with your dad?
Well, I did really, yeah. I mean, I went to Pershore College.
Yeah,
I did a year's course in it was an NCH in horticulture, landscaping.
Okay.
And I went back before that, actually, when I was 16, I developed the systems in the company for BS 5750, which was the forerunner to ISO 9002. So that was pretty interesting for me.
When you were 16 years old?
Yeah.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
And Elmtree at the time, we're the 5th landscaping company in the UK to have BS 5750.
Brilliant. Cool.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So you went off and you got some proper qualifications in the industry. and then what then came straight back to the business, and you haven't looked back since. I suppose you've been there ever since.
Yeah, really. I mean, initially I was working outside sometimes on the tools. I was doing a little bit of the management side. Then it just grew from there, really. So I think I knew then, after I was 20 or so, it was what I was going to do. And I really enjoyed it. And as I sort of grew more into a management role, I started to put my own slant on things as well. And I'm sure you know that the management styles have changed an awful lot in the last 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
So it was nice to put my own slant on things, really, you know.
So what did the business look like when you started then, in terms of the size, turnover, people, amount of vehicles, that kind of stuff, the kind of projects you worked on? What did it look like then?
So I think in those days, we probably had 15 to 18 guys working for us. It was my dad's landscape manager as well. We had an admin person in the office, who was my auntie. And mainly it was new build site. So for the likes of Taylor Wimpey, Level Homes, and several other smaller clients. It was all soft landscaping work, really. We didn't really touch the hard landscaping side of things. And we did grounds maintenance as well. The office was run from our house where I grew up.
Right.
And it was only when I was about 23 or so, we moved into a larger premises on a farm with plenty more space for us to grow.
So what does it look like now then? What does it look like now? So from 15 to 18 people, your auntie working in the office from home, and what does it look like today?
So today we've got probably up to 60 people working for us.
Okay.
I think my dad's last year we turned over in the region of 875 grand. Now we're up to about 6 million a year.
Wow.
Where we've got quite a few large clients, for some really strong relationships with some good clients. We're building up our reputation. We've got an extremely good name, and I'm thankful for that, because it's all about our guys who work for us, really, and we're completing projects over 500k in value. Wow. I think our largest project was 925,000. Wow. So then obviously winning Employer of the Year at the Pro Landscape Awards, and winning Supreme Winner twice as well is a fantastic accolade. So we're really proud of that. Yeah.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, this is what the whole point of this particular podcast is, because I'm sure there's other podcasts out there how to actually become a better landscape gardener, but this is about running a great landscape business, and obviously by winning those, you've got the stamp of approval there. Hence why you're here today. Very good. So, with all your experience and all the years of challenges and all the successes and the ups and downs that no doubt you had, what would you say the most important elements are to running a successful business?
I mean, you obviously have to make a profit, because if you make a profit, then you can grow, reinvest your cash flow. But for me, it's all about people, because if you get your people right and you get your systems in place, the profit flows really from there. So we need to trust your team, let your people learn from mistakes. You can't micromanage your people. I've learned that before. And if you give people enough trust and let them learn, then you see it back. And personally, I would never, ever tell somebody off in front of another person working under them. It's not right. It's not fair. So if you've got an issue with somebody, talk to them one-on-one. One of the things that I learned back probably 10 years ago was showing appreciation and praise, and that's so important. If people feel valued working for you, then you see the return in the investment in them.
Yeah, it's so good. People generally want to feel, a human trait is to want to feel valued and really like they've got a part to play and that they're appreciated. And when you recognise that, it really does help. So it's interesting. You said earlier that when you were 16, you started up the system. So you obviously see value in creating systems and processes. And I think if you get the people right, and you get the people working great systems and educate them on the systems and the processes, then as you say, the byproduct of that is profit, isn't it?
Sure.
Improved efficiencies and profit. So you got to have the systems in place for people to be able to know what the processes are in order to know how to follow them. Do it the Elmtree way. So good. So people, systems, profit. Yeah, without the profit, there's no business, is there? So that's all the good stuff. So, but looking back, maybe some of the setbacks you've had. What would you say the biggest challenges you've had, or the obstacles that you've overcome in the past? If you just want to explain what they might be, what you did about it, and potentially what the outcomes were.
So I think the biggest one for us was the recession of 2007, 2008. That was really, really tough, because in those days I was managing everything myself. So I was invoicing, I was managing the guys, and it was really stressful time back then. And I'm not sure if we're going to touch on mental health or anything like that, but in those days I was drinking quite a bit just to try and cope as a coping mechanism. But anyway, the recession hit, and I was so concerned about keeping the skills in the company, the skill set, because I knew then it was all about people. So we took on some work at a fairly low margin just to keep the turnover there and ensure that as we came out of the recession, we had that skill set still.
Brilliant.
So it worked well, because as we came out in 2010-11, I started to look at how we manage our people and how to get the best out of people. So I looked at various things, and I decided on investors and people. So I engaged the services of a consultant to learn all about managing people and how to get the best out of them, and develop systems for appraisals,
Brilliant.
performance reviews, and all of that sort of thing. And about a year after that, we went through our first visit from an investors and people assessor, and we sailed through it, thankfully, and started growing really from there, because as we had the systems in place for people, it was easier to grow. So that challenge, and I always like to see a challenge as a positive. What can you gain from it? So that was probably my biggest personal challenge, that recession. And then the other challenge, which has been the same for everybody really, was COVID. And obviously it was how to manage the impact of it. Again, keep the skills in the company. The furlough scheme was really great. If it wasn't for that, we'd have been really stuck.
Like a lot of people.
So yeah, of course.
So look, these times when you get crises, whether it's the credit crunch, 2008, whatever it was, and for a good few years, or whether it's COVID, big global pandemic, when in times of crisis, even though you can't see it at the time, they tend to be the most important and most valuable times, because you learn a lot about yourself, and you think, right, how can we do things differently? And you could even, you've got two choices, haven't you? You can sort of put your head in the sand and be in denial, or you can think, right, what can we do about it? How do we come out of this stronger? How do we benefit from this? And clearly, I like your honesty with, you had a few a few drinks at the time because of the stress. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of other people listening to this now where, we're all human. And I think people respond to things in different ways. And fair play for you for coming out the other side of that. But I think there's a lot of people that will be in the same boat. So you've learned a lot, and as a result of that, you did the Investors in People. And from what I know about that scheme, it's probably one of the best things that you can do as a business. I know because of your Employer of the Year and the Pro Landscape Awards, I read reams and reams of your entry, and I read a lot about what you've done in the Investors in People scheme and how impressed the assessors were, when they read when they come and audit you. So. Yes. As a result of that, then, how much better would you say your company is now on the people front? Sounds like your biggest focus is all about the people.
Yeah, I don't think there's any comparison really from what it is now to what it was going back 20 years ago in terms of people. We've always been the sort of company that cared about people, but it's having systems in place now and actually having a plan, performance reviews, as I say. We're talking about having a 360 management feedback review plan. So we all look at ourselves and what our skills and shortcomings are, so we can improve on those. So it's all continuous improvement. So yeah, there isn't any comparison really to what we were back then.
Yeah, it gives you a really good framework, doesn't it? It gives you a plan, a structured sort of action plan, if you like. Because I suppose you know what you want to achieve in terms of, I really want to build a company and look after the people, and I want, to look after everyone, but you don't necessarily know how to do it. So I suppose that gives you the roadmap that you think that they say, right, you need to have this in place, you need to do this, you need to have appraisals, you need to have values, you need to have a vision, you need to have meetings, you need to have structure, you need to have systems. I suppose all those kind of things, but you don't know that until you know it. So I think that gives you a nice specific...
You have to ask for help. And if you don't, so you think you can't learn everything yourself just by looking on Google and just by reading books. So you need to ask for help, and that might be help in the network you have locally. It might be help in the trade associations you're in. For example, Bali are fantastic.
Yeah,
and they have an officer for technical stuff. You have your local meetings where you can attend, and it might be a walk around the garden, it might be a talk, but there's other landscapers there. And if you attend those and you talk to other people, there's people in the same boat as you, or who were in the same boat as you 5 or 10 years beforehand, So use that network and ask people. And the landscaping industry is such a friendly industry, I find. So there's always somebody that's willing to take the time to explain something to you. And the other thing, actually, where I have learned something, is entering the awards for Bali, where the judges come out, look at the jobs with you. And I've learned things from the judges' visits as well, technical things that I wouldn't have had a clue about beforehand. But I've learned that from the judge.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I think a lot of people we've had on the show already have said, get out there, speak to people, because it can be very lonely running your own business. If you try and do it all yourself, you're in your own bubble. You're never going to pick up, the knowledge that you need. But through Bali and the APL and Pro Landscaper Awards and all those things combined, getting out into the community, like you say, there's people that have done what you are trying to do previously. There's people that are, that have been there, done it, and if you can lean on them, and like you say, the industry is really friendly and very abundant. Everyone wants to help each other, and I think you just got to reach out to people and ask. Don't be afraid to ask. I think that's a common theme with everyone. Very good, great points there. So if I was to ask you, put you on the spot and ask you if there were 3 tips or 3 bits of advice that you could suggest that would improve a company's efficiencies or profits, what would you say the top 3 things would be in order to improve your profits and your efficiency?
To improve profits. For me, improving profits comes from people. And it's got to start with staff retention, because it can cost up to £20,000 for you to recruit and train a new member of staff.
Yeah.
So if you're going to waste £20,000 on or spend £20,000 on recruiting and training somebody, it's a lot better for you to look after the people in the company at the time.
Yeah.
So I've got to say that number one for me is to look at ways of retaining your staff, whether that be training, communication, doing appraisals, looking at where they can move up in a company, make sure there's a clear line of progression so they can move up. We've always liked to recruit to promote from within.
Yeah, wherever possible.
And it's so fantastic to see people that have started with us that have said they've got no ambition whatsoever of moving up the ladder, and suddenly they're supervisors and managers in the company, you know?
Yeah.
So people is my number one thing, because everything stems from them.
Yeah.
In terms of profit, the second tip, you need to be making sure that you're making a profit on every job. So you've got to have some system of measuring your profit. And it depends what size you are, but you've got to be costing your job properly, making sure you know the value of any goods you're buying. And if it's a project in times like this where the cost of materials are changing so quickly, ensure that you put in your quotation that this price is only valid for 30 days or 60 days, whatever, because costs can change so much. And then throughout the job, just ensure you're keeping tabs on the expenditure, so you know that you're going to run that job at a profit. And if you don't make quite as much profit on one job as what you wanted to, just look at that spreadsheet and see where it didn't go quite as well, so you can improve on the next time.
Yeah, knowing your numbers. So good. I think you couldn't have asked for better answers there. I think they're spot on. Would there be a third and final one? I think you've nailed them, to be honest, with knowing your numbers, getting your pricing right, getting the right people. You know, I think that incorporates quite a lot of those, really. I don't want to put you under any more pressure than I just did. So moving on to the next question then.
One thing I would say is that don't be scared of investing in your team, because it's easy for somebody to think, oh, if I spend £1,000 on a course for this person, and then I spend X amount on doing appraisals and that, then if they leave in 6 months' time, it's all a waste. But actually, if that person feels that you're investing in them, they're a lot less likely to leave. Yeah. So I've always said, if there is a business case for anything, I'll do it. Yeah. Whether that be buying a piece of machinery, or paying for mental health training for somebody, or for buying a new vehicle. If there's a business case, I'll do it. And if people know that you think they're essential to you and that you value them, they're a lot more likely to stay with you. Yeah, yeah. So, if you're prepared to invest into them. See, the trouble is, if you don't train them, they stay. And if they're not adding value, you know, then really, you know, what's worse, you know, invest in them and they go, or not invest in them at all. You know? So and I think, like you say, there's that law of reciprocity. You know, if you give back, give them, they want to give back, and when they become more valuable to you because they've got more knowledge, then you should really get better performance, shouldn't you, off the back of that. Yeah, so, I mean, there's probably 4 people I can think of now who would have left in the last 2 years if we hadn't been the sort of company that invests in them. So we did 4 people who were suffering with either depression or other issue, mental health issues. And where we have an open policy and we talk about mental health as a company, and we do mental health awareness training, those people felt able to approach us and talk.
Yeah.
And so we found solutions and help them. And those 4 people are in the company now. Yeah. So again, if you think that to recruit and train somebody can cost up to £20,000, potentially those 4 people stay in has saved us £80,000.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that's a great thing to be able to do. Wonderful. So if you had any advice about someone at the moment, so with your experience, obviously been through the tough times and you've been through certain challenges and you've overcome those challenges, what advice would you give to someone who's maybe a bit stuck in their business at the moment? They want to expand it, but they don't really know what those first steps are to take. What would you say to them?
I think I would go back to what I said earlier on about using your network. And if you're a member of a trade body, then speak to people there. Go out and meet some other landscapers. I also think that using a consultant or a business coach is really helpful because, if you've started and you're growing, you don't know everything. And if you can lean on the people around you and other consultants and other landscapers. So yeah, I would just say, speak to other people. Don't try and find everything out yourself from Google.
Yeah, that's a great bit of advice. I think in any walk of life, really, if you want to achieve something, you've got to model yourself on someone or a company that has already done it and seek them out and ask questions. Because, there's no rocket science, is it really? I think people have been there and done it. Why try and reinvent the wheel and try and, overcome these things yourself? Because someone's done exactly what you want to do, want to achieve, and they've probably done it really, really well. So I think it's great advice, especially specifically with the landscape industry. I think they are so abundant. Everyone's very open. And that's what a lot of people have said on this show as well. Just ask, pick up the phone, drop us an email. If you're stuck, then people are kind. I think I've coached people in a lot of different industries, pretty much nearly all the industries that you can imagine. But out of all of those, I think the people in the landscape industry are so passionate about what they do. They tend to be really kind, really nice, genuine people, the majority of the time. So you've got to use that great benefit of being, within this industry. Okay, so I have one final question to you.
The other thing I would say is to always have an open mind to change. And don't just think because you've done something for 5 or 10 or 15 years, it's always going to be that way. So if you're open to change, then it can kind of breed for company. And you might have a guy that's only just started out for you as an apprentice, but they come on board, and because they're young, they've got a more technical mind than you, or an IT type mind. They might have some different way of doing things that you've never even thought of. So it's important to always have an open mind, I think, and be open to change.
Well, I think that's a really, really good point, especially, with your company's history. You think back from 1969. If you or your dad never changed and you're still stuck in your ways, you have to move with the times, don't you? And you say when you're 16 years old, you came in and started doing the systems. So your dad must have been open to change as well. So maybe that's where you get that from.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it was Dad's idea to do the BS 5750. So we talked about it with me and we looked at it and I did a lot of the work on it. But yeah, so he was always open to change back then. Yeah. I think some of the changes I've made in the last 15 years have been a little bit new to him, a little bit more alien. Yeah. But yeah, at the end of the day, he is open to change. Yeah.
It's a classic kind of father and son scenario in a business. And I've coached a lot of companies that either father-son or father-daughter or son and daughter, whatever it might be. And and some of the challenges is about letting go and being able to trust and hand over the reins, to someone, because it's your baby, isn't it? You've nurtured it since 1969, and then all of a sudden you want to take a bit of a step back and think, well, can I trust the handing over my baby to my baby? and that's often the challenge that people find, but obviously your dad trusted in you.
No, you're right. I mean, one of our clients, who's a friend actually now, who I've known for years, he's said to me quite a few times, he said, Paul, there isn't many companies that are passed down from father to son that do better, and improve. A lot of the companies passed down, the sons or daughters might ruin things and just think it's there perhaps as a cash cow, we've really expanded on things that dad's started out. So it's good. Good.
So he can obviously trust you. But look, we said earlier, his last year he did 875 grand turnover, and now you're at 6 million. I think the numbers never lie, do they? They always tell the truth. So there's definite proof that whatever you've done has been even better than what your dad did. So your dad set great foundations and you've taken it on to the next level. Okay, well, if there was one golden nugget, then I think I probably know maybe what it could be. But if there was one golden nugget that you could give someone trying to build their business, from all your years of experience and knowledge and challenges and overcoming those, what would it be?
It's about people, really, isn't it, next, Phil? Yeah. So not to be scared of investing in your team, because it's going to empower people. If they feel that you're investing in them, they'll feel a lot more valued. When I started doing Investors in People, going back in 2011, we had something up on the board about what matters to people in a job. And there was money, there was praise, there was feeling valued, and money came up as about number 3, number 4, so it wasn't the most important thing. I appreciate now, because the cost of living crisis and everything, money is a lot really important to people, but there's other things that are really important as well. So don't be scared of investing in your team. If you want to keep your staff retention up, or improve your staff retention, your people have to feel valued and empowered.
Yeah, I think that's so good to finish up on. And look, that was one golden nugget, but the last half an hour or so has been filled with loads of golden nuggets. I'm sure there's a lot of people that will get a lot of really good information and good food for thought to get them thinking about what they could do differently to improve their results. So really, really appreciate your help, your involvement, your participation, your honesty, and your experience. I think it's brilliant. So if people want to get in touch with you then, Paul, if they wanted to either pick your brains or if they wanted to engage with you as a contractor, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Through our website, which is www.elmtreegarden.co.uk, or my email address, which is paul@elmtreegarden.co.uk.
That's brilliant. I think you've really helped a lot of people out there. There's loads of wisdom there and nice bite-sized chunks. And I think you hit the nail on the head with everything you said. So, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. Thanks for everything. And we'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks very much, Nick. I've enjoyed it.
Brilliant. So have I. I'll catch you soon. Cheers, Paul.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Grow Landscapers podcast. To get in touch and see how we can help you with your business by emailing nick@nickruddle.com.